Hi and welcome back to the best thing you watched this week. We've got Chris from Movies and Munchies, myself, Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us here week on, week out. If it's your first time, thank you for joining us and lending us your time. There are time codes in the description, so if there's specific things you came here to look for and you don't have to waste your time, you can go to that specific topic of what we're talking about. But generally, what we do is we talk about the best things each of us watched this week. In the audio exclusive content, we also talk about a movie that either we haven't seen for a long time that we alternate each week. We choose. Chris chooses one, I choose one. We swap around. This week's is a doozy. It's the first time I've ever seen it. Chris said, you watch this. So we're going to talk about that in the audio exclusive. Our Patreon this week, we had, if you are part of a certain tier, you can come and speak to us, literally share your thoughts and choose something to watch. We had that this week. Very exciting. We're also doing a deep dive spoiler on Fast and Furious X. So that is like a lot of what we got going on in the best thing we watched.
Yep.
It's going to be an interesting week for me personally this week, Chris, because I actually watched a lot of poo. There was a comment that we had recently. It's like, you should do the worst thing we watched this week. And even though we've started that in audio, like we choose one, I think some weeks we could actually swap it around, choose one good thing and just do the worst thing, because that's what this week 100% feels like for me.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, so even if I found good things to watch, they probably won't be like as high on the tier as they normally are, because that's what I've got to choose from isn't necessarily amazing content. That makes sense.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, no, I get that. This was a tough week for me too. I mean, it was a little slower for me, which was kind of nice. Not from just because I dove into something that I hadn't seen before, right. Just from my list of ever-growing things to watch. Yeah. And so that was cool to do, to dive into that. I watched some, caught up on some series that we've been watching week to week. And so that was fun too. And yeah, so.
Okay. But we always start with the movie quote quiz. You did one last week, so you're going to tell us who won and what the answers were. Then I presume you have another 3?
I do.
All right.
So Nostromo eked in and beat everybody out this week.
Well done.
There were several though that did get the correct answers. Some answered with the movie title. Some answered with additional quotes, like you did, which was outstanding. So the answers for last week were Super 8, Independence Day, and Mars Attacks. Yeah. And so obviously nice sci-fi, alien invasion type of theme there.
I'm a huge fan of Super 8, so yeah.
Oh my gosh. Dude, it was like a reboot of Goonies. The feeling of that was I had a blast with it. Yeah. The second time I saw it, I think I went with some people, and I don't always like going to the movies with people, especially if I don't totally know them, because this person talked through the movie, like
I would describing or like the hell up,
like audibly reacting to things and like, oh no, don't do that, or oh my gosh, what are they doing, dude? If you watch the movie, it'll tell you what they're doing. Just stop, Anyway, yeah. So, I could go off on a whole rant of audiences and poor behavior.
Yeah, we've had some interesting times with audiences.
Yeah. So, okay. This week, another theme. And I'm not going to tell you what the theme is, but hopefully you will get these. All right. Number 1. Don't be talking about my mama.
I have no idea. That could be a few, but it feels old.
Relatively, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. Number 2. Did he say funky butt loving?
Okay.
I think these will all become easy if you can get if you know the theme, it narrows it down greatly. But okay. Number 3. Not another one among us would have ever in a million years, even for $1 million, have the guts to put the move on the lifeguard.
All right. Yeah, that helps a bit, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let us know.
Nice.
Give us your guesses in the comments. Yeah, and then we'll give you the shout out next week. Ruben do you have a question for us?
Yeah, this one's on theme because we've had a big film come out, part of a franchise this week. I'd like to know, who is your favorite character out of all 10 movies? And you're not
in the Fast movies?
In the Fast, and you're not allowed to say Jason Momoa.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah,
I can't say Jason Momoa?
That's too easy.
Oh, dude. Michelle Rodriguez is Letty.
Yeah, she's quite fun.
I like her. I like her strength. I like her softness that we get to see in the latter films. Like she's still tough. When I say soft, I don't mean weak by any means. I mean, she's not, she's just, you see this, that care and concern, especially over little B, that there, and she, I don't know, the whole thing works for me. I really like her. There are obviously a few that I could pick that are a lot of fun, but who would you choose?
I mean, the first 7 movies, I'd probably say Paul Walker, just because I thought he brought a nice balance to Dom's character. Dom's quite hard and gruff, and Paul Walker's character, he had a lot more heart and emotion, I thought.
Yeah.
He brought a nice balance. But after that, I would, if I had to choose a different character, because there's no character that I can think of that is in all of them that I enjoy the most. Like Han, for the ones he's in, I really like the Han character, but then we're talking Tokyo Drift 9 and 10, I think.
Yeah,
that's 3. I would go like The Rock. I really like his character Hobbs. I like Jason Statham's character. Like, it's all almost like the people that have joined the family that I prefer, which is interesting to me. And none of us has said Dom Toretto. So that's
yeah, no, he wouldn't. He's lower, way lower on the list for me. Like,
yeah, he needs more.
Yeah, he does. I like. I really like Ludacris.
Yes, but I actually like them as a team. Ludacris and Tyrese as a combo playing off each other. I think that works.
Well, and I love the new inclusion of Natalie Emmanuel.
Yes,
in
so now you have a
trio
and they're bickering off of each other, and that works quite well. That's fun to watch.
Yeah, and a little bit of the teaming up of Natalie and Ludacris against Tyrese, because Tyrese is just he's kind of out there sometimes.
He is out there. Yeah. So I enjoy that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so let us know in the comments if you've seen them. Who would be your favorite character? Can't choose Jason, because I think after Fast X, everybody will choose Jason.
Absolutely. And I like Paul Walker a lot in it. I think you're right. I think he's especially number 5, I think, is my favorite after the first one.
Okay.
But I don't know. I like him. I like his, I like who he is. I like how he brings, anyway. Okay. Should we dive into
let's dive into the best thing we watched this week. Would you like to start?
Sure. So this is going to be a stream of consciousness, because I'm going to talk briefly about something that's not on my list.
Okay.
that then ties into the thing that made it on my list. Last week, the kids came over. We were just hanging out, and we watched a movie that my daughter-in-law had never seen. And actually, I'm not sure if either of my sons had seen. At least one of them, I don't think, had seen it. But we weren't sure if it was going to hold up. My wife and I quote this movie quite often in small bits and pieces. But it was Bring It On, that cheerleader movie with Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
It doesn't totally hold up. It's like it's the precursor to Pitch Perfect. Like, Pitch Perfect couldn't exist unless this movie existed.
Right.
Even though they're not singing, anyway. But it's wildly inappropriate. Holy crap. That movie is like,
it was wildly inappropriate when it came out.
It was, but it's even more so now. And then when you think of all of because these are high school students, and the gaze that the camera and the story have on that is just
Hey, Mickey, you're so fine.
Yeah. Ogling my goodies. Oh, that was an overshare.
But that's what cheerleaders do, right?
Well, yeah, but it's still as a, it's gross. I mean, really, if you know what I mean, because they're high school kids. That's
right.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, so this is not on.
This is not on the list because we went from, oh, well, this was an old movie and, well, it kind of held up a little bit, not totally, but we want to watch something else. And so we watched another movie that none of the kids had seen. But my wife and I, and it had been a while, like a long while since we had seen it, another one that we quote of certain things quite often. And this was, let me pull it up really quick because I need to make sure the year. I think it was 1994.
The year?
The year, well, of when it came out, yes. Okay, so it's a Mike Newell film, but it's written by Richard Curtis, and it stars Hugh Grant, Andy McDowell, Simon Cowell, Kristen Scott Thomas, John Hannah, 4 weddings and a funeral.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Dude, this, I still laughed out loud through a ton of it. You have the Rowan Atkinson as the new priest, just nailing it. I mean, he's playing his Mr. Bean character, but in a speaking role. It's great. Hugh Grant being that very, that stuttering, charming, awkward
Notting
type
Hill
of guy.
Character. Yeah.
Yeah, just it worked with him. All the friends around. I mean, I love Simon Cowell in this as Gareth, the over exuberant guy. When he goes to the wedding in Scotland and he's wearing the kilt and he's chewing on his cigar and he's just having a blast there. I mean, it's so funny to watch him interact with people, and he just, like, life is to be enjoyed and he's enjoying it. But the movie also has that sadness to it, which I think really works and draws it in. You have seen this one, yes?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What do you have fond memories of it, or?
It's I find it hard to choose between this film and Notting Hill. Like, which is my favorite Hugh Grant one. I think he's great in both of these. I like Notting Hill probably a little bit more, but I got a lot of time for this. Andy McDowell is really great in this as well, but it's got an amazing cast. John Hannah, he's funny in anything.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah. The funeral scene is heartbreaking and beautiful all at the same time. I think, it's written by Richard Curtis, who then goes on to do Love Actually. In some of those movies,
one of the greatest romantic films of all time.
Yeah, but
Holiday
still also
love stories.
And it mixes in though some melancholy within there, and mixes in realism, so that it's not your typical rom-com that's just laughs and everything else. I mean, there's seriousness to it, which I think makes it resonate more, or at least makes it more memorable.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, that was it was a great rewatch. I was so glad that we have put this on, and the kids really enjoyed it. My wife and I loved it all over again. So
that's so good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Interesting that it's their first time watch. I always get jealous of people that get to watch certain films for the first time, but I love watching it with them to see how they enjoy it.
Well, and you're always a little bit nervous. Because like some of these things, especially like with this, because we had just watched Bring It On, which my wife and I, in our memory,
fun.
We really liked.
It's a different experience, yeah.
Yeah, and then you watch it and you go, oh, some of it was okay, but yeah.
Am I allowed to watch this?
Yeah, this has not aged well. So, all right. What's on your list?
By far the best thing I watched this week was actually a stand-up comedy. It's new to Prime Video, and my goodness, you love this actor. I think you've seen Love Hard, right?
Yeah. Oh, Jimmy O Yang.
Jamil Yang has done a new special stand-up. Kirsten and I watched it, just trying to check it out, see what it's like starting it, and we before we knew it, it hit the end of it.
Wow!
It's so funny, but the humor he goes for is that sort of, what do you call it? Self-deprecating humor.
Self-deprecating.
Where he talks about Asians, and which he can do because it's him.
Yeah.
But he talks about how like there's just things that he talks about, like the food and greetings and like the differences between, you know, white people and Asians, and what's okay, what's not okay, and the way he says it and what his experiences. He talks very personal stories between him and his friend when they were still coming up being comedians, but that weren't popular. You know, they hadn't made it yet. So living in a house with a comedian on it that is, well, almost comedian, you know, trying to feed themselves. And then he talks about the woman he's with, who's a white woman, white American woman, I think. And so the differences and expectations of the relationships and cultures of clash. So it's a lot. There's some comedians that do jokes and then bring it round to skits. And then there's some comedians who are my favorite. I'm trying to remember another one. Michael McIntyre. He does the same thing. So he talks about real life, and then real life just ends up being so much more funny. Ricky Gervais does a lot of that as well. Real life moments that you've experienced. You're obviously putting it in a way that's funny. What I liked about his stand-up is, like, at the end, he showed us pictures of the people he were talking about so that you knew that the stories were real. So, because so many times comedians will tell a fake story to bring about you never know if the story that they're telling is real or just hyper realized. But when you see the pictures, and like, so you see his wife or his fiance, you see his best friend that is one of the best friends. He talks about the types of friends you want to have are not rich friends. You need to have poor friends because, and I don't want to spoil it for you, because as and so he goes through kind of his life. He chronicles how he became popular to where he is. He loves being with people now, especially because after COVID, so he references all like the stuff that's happening with us as well. And he also talks about how weird it is now being with people, like at the same time, like why there's so many faces, that kind of thing. He talked about the granny that wore face masks 10 years before COVID started, and how she was way ahead of the game, you know. So he's just referencing real life and stories, and then just like the way he delivers it is just so funny. But I mean, we've seen films, like we know his comedic timing from Love Hard, the other things he's been in. Jimmy O Yang, I'm telling you, he is one to watch. He's gonna get big fast. I mean, Crazy Rich Asians is great. Fantasy Island, I really like him in. I haven't seen Patriots Day. If that is the Patriots Day I'm thinking of. I have. Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg?
Very good film. Very, very good film.
I don't remember him in that.
I don't remember him who is in it, but and Love Hard is probably my favorite of his that I've seen.
Yearly watch now. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. It's like up there with Notting Hill, Love Actually, and Closer, was it? Something like that? Where they do the house swap.
Oh, The Holiday.
The Holiday. I don't know why I think it's close. Yeah, The Holiday. So this should be on everybody. If you like his humor, this is an easy, fun watch. You're going to laugh a lot.
It's called Guess How Much, right? Jimmy O Yang, Guess How Much? Is that the one that...
Yeah, probably. Yes,
okay, yeah.
Guess How Much.
Came out this year. Yeah.
Yes.
Sweet. Well, that'll be fun, yeah. I like one of my favorite comedians. He's passed on now, but John Panette. Again, like that, who just tells stories.
Yeah.
And the delivery is what makes it funny.
Yeah.
You know, the way that it comes about and their observations on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Well, for me, next up is, like I had mentioned, I had kind of a slower week, so I went and revisited. Well, I didn't revisit. This is the first time watch for me, but I watched something that I hadn't seen before, and it was a Spanish movie from 2018 that Netflix had bought and put their name on it and distributed it. But it's called Mirage, or Durante la Tormenta, and this is what I compared it to was a mix of Frequency, Back to the Future, and Primer.
Wow, that's a hell of a pitch right there.
Dude, so it's time travel-ish. Like there's a moment in there that feels more like The Lake House with Keanu Reeves, because it's like parallel timelines kind of that are just out of sync a little bit. But this woman in our present, it's 2014, but the present, for lack of a better, for understanding, just to make it easier. She, during a massive storm, connects with a boy from 25 years earlier, who she's living in his house, and on that same date in his time, a massive storm was going on. And so their realities connect. So it becomes a little bit like Frequency in that, you know what I mean? So she sees what's going on. She can communicate to him, and he to her. It doesn't happen very much. Like there's just a couple of initial type of things, but an accident happens in the past. And she's trying to work now from the future to fix that. And she influences things, but then that also affects her future. And so you watch that, and so now it's her working to fix things in her present, but not remove the changes that were made in the past. Does that make sense? Like my brain fell out of my head several times.
Dude, you
because
watch
I'm
Dark.
Well, and that's the thing. This movie, it brings it around, and it does connect all the dots, and it's actually very well executed. But there are so many times through it where you're like, huh? Yeah, and this is one where you literally cannot you can't be distracted. But you have to be totally invested in watching it, and for me, not only just because it was Spanish language, which I understand some just by hearing it and everything, but there are so many visual clues and things that are going on, and that I was enthralled though. There are, because I know you love Back to the Future, there are several nods to Back to the Future in this.
Okay,
that a lot of them are subtle. But they're there, and
but
so
fans
if you
will get them,
totally, yeah. Especially if you know that going in, like, okay, they're pulling some inspiration from Back to the Future, then it'll stand out even more.
Nice.
But it's actually really, really good, because there's a compressed timeline within there, because the storm only lasts for 72 hours, especially in the past. So she has a tight timeline to work within.
She's got to deal with it in that time, so it makes it tense.
Yeah. And it is it's emotional, and it's also emotionally confusing at points, because you begin to root for her in a different way than really it goes against kind of her happiness. But also then you're informed of certain things that we know detract from her happiness if she still pursues them this way. So it's emotionally investing, I think. And so it's it's, at least in the US, it's on Netflix still, which is outstanding. But I had a lot of fun with this, and this was like needed. I needed something that made me think, that made me just like, wait, what? Huh? And I did it.
Okay. I do have a question about the subtitles.
Yes.
How fast are they talking and how quickly they go? I noticed in some Spanish films, you've really got to pay attention to reading. So if you do that, then you kind of lose out on the visual storytelling.
Yes. I mean, Spanish speakers, especially when they get excited, they speak very, very fast. Yeah. This does a pretty good job at pacing the dialogue out, which I have noticed that a lot of, outside of American movies, the non-English language films tend to let things breathe a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, they don't fill it with sound, they don't fill it with dialogue, they let things be seen. And so while some of the dialogue does come a little quickly, it's not so it's not like a monologue that's just filled with information where you can't also see what's going on there. Does that make sense? Like, so I never felt like I was missing what was going on the screen because I was trying to read so much. It was, you would like, you just, you bounce back and forth, and it's like, okay, I get the context, even if I didn't read every single word of that, and I understood what they were saying, or if I'm reading every single word, there's something going on where it's just their face. I'm not missing anything if I look down from, and focus on the words.
So. Okay. I think I'll put this on my list. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Different.
It'll hurt your head.
Great. Maybe not when I'm tired.
No.
Next on my best thing I watched list was a new anime from Netflix that they seem to not be promoting at all. And I say it's a new anime because it's not even on their media site list. I presume it's one that they bought the license to or from an animated studio, but I thought it was an original coming from them. Anyway, it's quite short. It's only 6 episodes. However, the length of the first episode is 45 minutes and the subsequent episodes are 30 minutes. So different length for normally anime is about 25 and then it's only 22 without the intro and outro. So it's that's the standard. See, here it's different. It's a mixture of 2D, 3D art. I think it looks visually stunning. It looks really beautiful, which is different because I normally am not a huge fan of the 3D sort of anime. A lot of the time just looks like computer generated, and it just takes me out. My brain goes, that's not animation, because it feels like it needs to be hand painted Studio Ghibli style. But now as we've moved more into the digital realm, they need to get quicker at unfortunately like spewing these out. As the need for anime and the adaptations of whatever anime is to you come, from webtoons that have been adapted from the, not just digital, not just physical, but also digital. They are now more in need. I mean, anime used to be very niche, and it's just not anymore. Like everybody, there's a huge. So we get at least 1 or 2 new original anime series from Netflix every month, and that's good, but sometimes you don't know what you're in for. This one I had never heard of. It's original content I'd never read. It's called Yakitori, Soldiers of Misfortune, and it's a young man's rebel against authorities on a let's try that again. A young man's rebel. It's not a rebel. A young man rebels against authorities on a future version of Earth after he has recruited into an interplanetary military unit that suffers a 70% casualty rate. That's a really weird description. That's why I'm struggling with that. Basically, it's like we finally have first contact with an interplanetary species that, let's just say there's a species that run the universe, and they come and take over Earth. And they think that we're less than, we're dumb. So they basically use Earth people as either slaves or food or soldiers. And the species that run it are like, they look like dogs, cats, elephants, ostriches, but they're all like humanoid figure in length. And they all speak their own space language. It's so weird that our animals mimic like the alien species that we have out there. And basically cats are like the hierarchy, which makes sense to me. And dogs are like the soldiers, also intelligent. And then we have this elite unit of humans. They become elite, but what they are at the beginning is a bunch of misfits. That normally humans are taken and they're downloaded with a bunch of information. This is how you fight. And then they do well in the simulations, but then they go out to battle and they die because they've had no real experience. So this team, instead of doing that, this one guy has like future sight. He downloads them the minimal thing of languages to be able to speak to other species. Instead, he teaches them physically how to fight. And so you have like a montage that goes on throughout the 6 episodes because basically you see them fighting and in war on another planet. And then that'll be like the first 10 minutes of the episode. And then we'll jump back to them training, and then we'll jump back to the current situation. So it splices up that, and I thought it did really well. The only thing that's really missing from this anime is real backstories to each of the characters. So we get to know them as a cohesive group, and at the beginning, they like all of them come across as douchebags in some way. They're all unique, but you can tell like that's the angry, tortured guy. That's the guy that's going to be the funny comedian guy, you know, and that's the girl that's mysterious and has some training and trust issues. You know, you get them surface level. So we really need to have a few more episodes to delve into their pasts and who they are. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I did a lot. And there's a nice weird soundtrack to this. It's classical whenever we have the humans on. And it feels like it shouldn't work because what they're experiencing, like what they're doing, they're fighting thousands of aliens. If you think like Starship Troopers level of aliens, you know, there's all those kind of just running across just that sort of level. And they are all the time outnumbered. And they are treated as like cannon fodder as well. And they end up doing great jobs, but they're still like treated like cannon fodder because humans are not at the top of the food chain.
Sure.
There's also this interesting theme that goes along is like, are we doing good? Like we're killing all these people. It's almost genocide. Not people, but like alien species. But should we be doing that? You never know who to root for or who the good guys are, which I thought was really interesting because wars like that. The victors are the ones of who's telling the story, right? And each side would consider themselves to be the good guys.
The hero, yeah.
So I thought it played very well. The main character, Akira, you come to like. I didn't like him at the beginning. But by the end, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. It's got a weird tempo tone, like balls out action right at the beginning. Last episode is like a court case, and it just drops down, and it's about what they experience. And I'm like, what? The way it ends, really interesting and fun. And if that's of things to come, then I would love more. But if it's not, then I'm like, what? You should have given us more episodes.
Well, I'm looking at the poster for it, and at the top, it's like all these characters, and at the top is a pug with a mustache, which is outstanding.
He's like the general for the army.
But the thing that has got me very intrigued is like on the right side of the poster at the top, there is a white character who is wearing a sport coat and a like a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
And in the illustration, the dude looks exactly like Jeff Bridges.
He's the recruitment guy that brings this team together.
Okay. It's bothering me. Like anyway. Well, that's cool. I definitely different. I'm surprised. Netflix does these weird things where they don't promote certain things, and you're like, what? If you've spent
I don't even
the
think
money,
there's a proper trailer. There is like the intro online, but I haven't seen a trailer for it.
Wow. That's I don't get that. Okay. Well, last on my list, I had fun with it, so that's why it's on here.
Okay.
Fast X.
Yeah, this is last on my list as well.
Oh, okay. So I mean, Jason Momoa absolutely steals the show. The balls out action is just, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. My biggest I have two drawbacks for me, things that I wish they hadn't have done in this. One is the way they end it, where it just ends. Like we're in the middle of scenes, like nothing has been resolved. And in the screening that I was in, it didn't even say like to be continued. Now I know there has been information online that has talked about, well, it's going to be 2 or maybe 3. Okay. But it feels like did you just stop? Is that what's going on? You know what I mean? Like you didn't know you were going to continue, and so you didn't tell us you were going to continue. And I know that's a small thing that sounds stupid, but whatever. The other thing is I didn't appreciate as much all of the separation in the story that happens with our characters. I like them so much more when they're functioning as a large team. I mean, I'm okay when you have little bits here and there where they do, branches off, but really the most of the movie was that way. So,
it feels like the first chapter of a book, and we've really just gotten started, and it went nowhere. And that's how you left us. It didn't even feel like Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. It just felt like we just started to get going, and then it stopped.
Yeah. I think the characters are great. We get some cameos, which are fun. Still Jason Momoa is, which I think in your question, we don't get to choose Jason Momoa because he's so out there and he's having so much fun with his character and in his performance that, he was a blast.
If it wasn't for Jason Momoa, my ranking, 3.5 Nicolas Cages would have gone down to 2.5. It would have just been done bog standard action Fast and Furious film.
Correct.
And in fact, it would have probably been inferior because I think there's been some stunts in the previous that were more out there and more interesting. We've gone to space, we've had a submarine, the skyscraper jump from building to building, with the car. They felt more outlandish and big in previous films. This time we have long action scenes and they're very interesting and they're fun, but it does feel, and to say this is stupid, somewhat more grounded than the other.
This is way more grounded than 9.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have more racing, which for one is like we're getting back to the roots, more to do with cars-ish. And then we get back to family. And I like the fighting sequences. I think actually they stand up as some of the best choreographed. Like you have Michelle Rodriguez fighting
Charlize
Theron, and their fights are brutal and really interesting to watch. You have Statham doing his thing, and watching Statham fight is never a chore. Like seriously, he just feels like he knows how to handle himself because he's had that training. So so all the fights I thought were really good. Action scenes are great. For me, the standout apart from Momoa would probably be his brother, what's his name again?
Oh, John Cena.
John Cena, yeah. I thought he had a lot of heart, was fun. I like what they did with partnership there. But it's all over the place. It literally is all over the place. I loved the locations. I thought they were fun and interesting.
Totally, yeah.
But the film leaves you like, this is where we are. And you're like, if you weren't planning, because it felt like he definitely said, this is the end of the franchise, Fast X. At what point in the story did they get to the end and go, oh yeah, we're nowhere near finished? Oh yeah, and this is way too long and we can't cut it down. Let's do more.
It's confusing, right? So yeah, I mean, it was fun, and I think you first off, I don't think you get to Fast X without having seen at least a few of the other ones. This is not your entry point. Right. I mean, you because, and really, I mean, 1 is so grounded. The first one is, while there are a lot of great racing sequences, there's nothing that's outlandish. You know what I mean? It all feels very plausible, very real, with very real risks associated with the racing and what they're doing. Now we get to where we're at, and you're just like, okay, what are you going to do? Surprise me. I'm here for it, and we get that. And so that is fun. But I think you have to know the movie you go into, to see this. And if you like them, then you're there for it. If you don't like them, why in the world would you see 10? I don't know.
No, exactly. Like if you come so far, if you've watched 9, 10 is way better than 9. So
exactly. Yes, absolutely. So. Okay.
I have one last thing to talk about, but it's not the best thing I watched this week, but it is something I wanted to talk about in this segment.
Okay.
Because I think it will be the best thing some people watch this week because of the demographic that it's actually for. So I watched it, and there were moments in it that I really enjoyed. There were moments that I thought this is a load of nonsense and this is too cringy. And then there were moments like, I kind of get why, but Exo Kitty came out this week. It's a spin-off series from To All the Boys and a Cathcart returns as a crafty teen matchmaker, Kitty Song Cowboy, with a dreamy love story and a thrilling adventure of her own. One of the reasons I was actually interested in this is because it wasn't going to be situated in America anymore. She goes to Seoul, where her boyfriend is, kind of rocks up as a surprise. And that's all happens in the first episode. She goes to a prestigious school on a scholarship. There's a connection there with her mom, so there's a whole bunch of connections for her to go to Seoul. So you actually do have, and I didn't expect this. There's like some subtitles you have to read, because a lot of and I thought they were just going to like be all dubbed or speaking American. Yeah. With an accent, right? And there are some times when you're reading subtitles. So that for me immediately added like some height, like, oh, there's some. But the way it's filmed, it feels like those silly romantic films, they're really sharp and crisp filming, like HD Hallmark movies, right? It feels like that in a TV series. But the demographic is obviously for young teens. The way it's scripted and worded, like the things that they're going through, that they're moaning about. As an adult, it's very hard to relate to, because you're just thinking you don't understand what life is. Like your hardship from what you're experiencing, there's nothing. Like, seriously, grow up. But that's coming from a grumpy 40-year-old. Sure. But if you put yourself in their shoes at their age, the things that are important are those things. If you're at college and school, it's all about girls and boys. And probably if you don't know anything about your mom and your mom went to that school, you want to know about. Those are the things that are important to you. So there's the classic storylines that are popular to do. So like the gay and lesbian thing. And I thought that was actually quite brave to do in here, because I had to do some research to check that I was right. But in South Korea, you can be openly gay. It's not illegal, but there's no protection for you whatsoever. And there's a lot of, you cannot go into the army or anything like that. Like if you're trans, none of that is allowed. Okay. And it's still openly kind of hated in a lot of parts of it. So they took a subject that's, I wouldn't say is woke. I would say that needs to be talked about to try and help elevate diversity. So a lot of people are already moaning about, oh, look at the force. Yeah, I don't see that. I think them trying to be brave, even if it's not filmed in South Korea, they're talking about stuff that is quite hard to talk about still, which is crazy in this day and age, but that's where we're at.
There you go.
So they took a topic that I thought was relevant, put it in a teen series without making it too preachy, and then had some comedy that worked. Some silliness that is just so cringe that you're going to be like, but others are going to lap up, because if it's for you, if you're the demographic for this, you're going to love this. To all the boys, like if you enjoyed some of that, you're going to love it, probably.
Okay. Well, so I love this. I love the movie. The first one, I love To All the Boys. I love that one. The next two, I watched them and I enjoyed them. Yeah. But they're not nearly as good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I would say that this is probably on par with the subsequent movies, not as good as the original, for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Does Lana Condor or Noah Centineo make any type of cameo?
There are some connections, but I'm not going to spoil that for you.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I was unaware of this completely. I probably would have checked it out had I realized that it was, tied to All the Boys, but also not sure. It sounds like something that I would have been happy that I watched.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It feels like that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, hey, we thank you for joining us. We have a Patreon, in case you didn't know that. Patreon.com/thebeardedones. It's on the screen. It's in the description below. For just £1 a month is the entry level, which is like $1.30, $1.40, something like that, where you get access to just a whole bunch of ridiculousness. Then we have tiers from there that amp up, and you get different content within there where you can request things, or even like we had a guest that's going to be showing up in a Patreon very soon, who joined us, and we discussed on camera a ranking. So that was a lot of fun. Coming up in just a couple of weeks, Ruben and I are going to be watching a short movie and doing a drinking game. So that, well, we don't know what that's going to turn out like. It has the potential to be very, very funny or very, very sad. Well,
disastrous.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see. But also, don't forget to head over to our individual YouTube channels. Ruben with the Ruby Tuesday, me, Chris, Movies and Munchies. Also, we have a full audio podcast where more of this is going on there. And we've linked that in the description below. But you can find it pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you could rate and review us, that would be outstanding, because what we do in that, we talk about some of the things that were coming up, that we're looking forward to, some of the entertainment news of the week, some of the things that bubbled up to the top. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's just like head scratching. But we also tackle a movie that either neither of us have seen, or it's been a long time since one of us has seen it. And so we talk about that. And we typically also visit some of the poorer things that we viewed during the week that didn't make it on the list. So we invite you to check that also. With that, yeah, we'll see you next week. All right. Take care.